Hello everyone, welcome back. What we're going to do today is take a look at what comes with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, what's in the book. And instead of an unboxing, because it's not a box, it's a book, so it's the unbooking of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is a huge, huge book. Now, one thing I want to address first is like the quality, physical quality. This came great. This is bound really fantastic. I almost need to pull the camera back more just so I can fit the whole thing on here. But it came in great shape. No corners bent, nothing like that. Now, that is more with the packing. I point that out because I did see on Amazon some folks who got their book from Amazon. They were talking about how when it arrived, corners were bent, there was damage on the book, and so they kind of gave it thumbs down. And that's, sad that that should happen. But I think overall, though, if the person shipping the book to you, packs it really well, I think you should have no trouble getting a book in good quality if you order it that way. If you get yours at the store, that's a different story. This was sent in the mail, and Paizo packed it wonderfully. So my book came, it looks great. So far, the pages, I haven't had any pages come loose, and I've been flipping through and looking at it, trying to, crease it out a little bit so it lays flat. But out of the box, it already laid flat. It's to me, feels really good. Like this is a nice, good, sturdy book. And I will point out one thing, though, that did kind of freak me out at first, is when I was holding it, it does flex quite a bit. Now, I compared to some other books I have, and they don't have nearly as much flex. Does that bother me? No. It's just odd. But I think, honestly, with the price point, $60 book, if you start adding thicker cardboard, you're going to start really adding to the price point. But I think it's adequate enough to hold up. I only mention that because the game's been out since August, I think, right? August, September time frame. And it's kind of like, well, is this going to hold up to 10 years? I hope so. It's too early to tell. But currently, though, my copy is in very, very good shape. Even after trying to read through it, lay it out, hold up good. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about, was kind of that physical quality. The pages are good. I have not had any ink smearage. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't taken my finger and tried to drag it across the pages, mostly because I think it's a very good looking book, and the last thing I want to do is purposefully try to smudge it to check the quality. But just on my day-to-day flipping through, I've had no problems with ink or smudging or anything like that. To me, it's been very nice. It's been very favorable. Now, yeah, I was just trying to think if there's something else, maybe talk about the physical components. Not really. I think this is a really, really good book. Holds up really, really well. Alright, so that out of the way. Okay, so what is in here? Well, let's take a peek here. Advertisement for the bestiary. This is 638 pages. Do you really count this page? Well, it's part of the index, so maybe, but when you get to, say, the last full page of rules, character sheets, what it looks like. It looks way different than some of the beta sheets. I kind of like the more traditional look. I print the black and white for an even more traditional feel. Let's see, appendix, you're getting into conditions. So, let's say 623 pages before you hit, say, the character sheet and index. Not bad. Conditions, appendix, treasure. So it's a huge book. That's what I'm getting at. It's huge. This is full of a lot of stuff. And so that's what we're going to do now, is kind of take a look at what do you get for that money, or for that many pages. Well, I like the way the book, first of all, I just like their presentation. I think it's very classy. I enjoy the layout. I always thought that they've done a great job with the artwork and making their things very approachable, and that continues here as well. We got like our little introduction to the gaming idea, the game itself, role playing, some terms, definitions. Here's a sample of play. I don't know if I like this, dislike it. I don't know. I never read these. I think early on I used to read the example of play, but I'll be honest, I just skip right over those these days. But I will say this though, that because to me Pathfinder First Edition was kind of that intimidating game because there was so much to it, that I'm sure if other people were just looking at getting into role playing, they're going to look at some of the big competitors, producers, and everybody's trying to look at who's got a nice lead into role playing kind of a thing. If I was going to pick this game or this game, but I've never played one before, which one's going to hold my hand better? And when I was watching some of the YouTube videos from Paizo talking about second edition, they mentioned that was something they were trying to address, was make the game accessible. So even though you might be a brand new player, there's going to be things in here to help you on that journey of learning, whereas you might not have got that with first edition as much. I'm not saying they didn't, but if you didn't watch my Why Pathfinder second edition, I'll just tell you here, I've never played Pathfinder. I've played a lot of other games, but I've never played Pathfinder, so I can't really speak to the complexity or how hard it is to get into first edition, just why I didn't, my thoughts on why it did look intimidating, why I never did it, as a new player kind of point of view. But here, popping in here, I think they did do a good job though leading in for new players, because it has a nice section that talks about like character creation, your concept. Now a lot of games do. I'm not going to say that this is the only game that's ever done it, but what I really appreciated was I think they laid it out very, very well. So if you take the time to read the introduction, at least start at character creation. If you're not very familiar with it, I would say start with character creation. You could skip a lot of this stuff. It's good if you've never ever, because it talks about like key terms and what a role playing is. But if you have some familiarity, but you're new to Pathfinder, start at character creation. It talks about the scores, and I love the way that they generate scores, and it talks about that a little bit here. And then boom, I love this step 1, and it lays out very clearly what you're doing at each step of character creation. And pick your ancestry, nice little intro to what the ancestries are, or races in some games, your character classes, and there's quite a few classes. And then it talks about the character sheet. Now what I really like here is it has a very good explanation with the pointing out each section of the character sheet, and then you can come down and see how it fits into the different steps of creation. So again, if you're pretty new, it does a very good job of walking you through step by step, laid out very well. Now, there's still a lot of choices to be made, so it's still, I think, very good the fact that they got a nice step-by-step guide for you. Your alignments, because those are some of the last finishing details. And then it talks a little bit about how you're leveling up. Sample character, leveling up checklist. Leveling up's pretty simple too compared to some other games I've played. And then now we pop right into the ancestries and background. So you can follow your step-by-step, come to the different sections of the book. Now you are going to have to do a lot of flipping back and forth. Like if I'm on this step, I got to flip over here, get some information, kind of go back. But that's going to happen with any game that you play, really. You have to go find a particular section, get what you need, go back to the next step of character creation. So that's there. But when you get into it, I think they had a pretty good selection of ancestries. The one that isn't typical, I would say, and I don't know if I'm excited to play one, but I think I'll have some friends who want to. So I like they got dwarf, elf, gnome, the goblin, the bane of many Pathfinder player. I'm sure somebody's going to have very much fun playing a goblin and repaying all that fun back to other goblins they encounter. So I thought that was kind of a cool little class to put in. What I like though with each class is as they level up, every few levels they get to pick something specific to their ancestry, like a feat. So I think it's kind of cool that, like it says here, first level you gain 1 ancestry feat. So there's like 1, 2, 3. There's like well, there's a whole bunch of feats at first level for a goblin. So what's cool about that to me is I might pick a goblin, you pick a goblin, but we could pick different feats as we go along. Now some levels you only have like maybe 1, so there's no choice, but maybe there's 2 to choose from. So over time, my goblin might be slightly different than your goblin, because, you know, people are different. So I thought that was kind of cool. I like that. Halfling, lots of short races. So you got dwarves, gnomes, goblins, halflings. There was an elf, and then you have human. Now I like here the human, you have the ability to make half elves, half orcs, and some rules to make other half, whatever you want to call it. But and it's got some rules on if you pick like a half elf, you get to pick, you know, a couple items from the elf heritage, a couple from your human heritage, and then kind of pick feats either way. I thought that's kind of cool. You can kind of customize your character that way if you go the human route. And then finally, after you get your ancestries done, you have backgrounds. Backgrounds I don't think are new, but this has actually a pretty good selection of backgrounds. Gives you a chance to modify your stats a little bit more. Now, I'm not talking about character creation necessarily, but one thing that I really like is the base rules, you don't roll for your ability scores. As you pick your ancestry, your class, background, you're going to get modifiers to your ability scores. That way, as you create and build your character, your ability scores go up. So you're not necessarily just randomly determining what you get, you're picking it as you create. So if you do it right, you're always going to have a pretty good fighter, you know. So you don't have to worry if you play the traditional where it's you roll 3 dice, take the numbers and apply them. Most games always have some sort of like roll 4, drop the lowest number, that kind of stuff. But this lets you build your character truly from the ground up, and I love that way of determining ability scores. But your background would give you like a couple skills, a couple ability score modifiers, something that you can fall back on as far as role playing. So if you find something that you think, hey, you know, my background before I was an adventurer, that might let me understand this situation better. Can I get some kind of bonus on a roll? I always thought that's fun. I like those little flavor things. Then it's got some rules on your languages. And then the classes. Classes is a pretty big part of the book. Some games your classes might take 1 or 2 pages because it explains, you know, what they get as they level up. But here, feats has always been a big part of Pathfinder as far as my understanding. But what I like here is there are feats that you get as you level up, and it lists them out for you. You can also pick from general feats, but there's like class specific feats as you level up. And again, kind of what's cool about that is everybody can tailor their character a little bit different than, say, someone next to them. So if you both take an alchemist, you can build your alchemist a little bit better than someone else. Here's a nice little table that talks about what you get as you level up to level 20. And then you start looking at specific things you get as you level up. Light armor expertise there, just kind of picking a couple items, double brew. And then it goes into specific feats that you can choose from. Usually you pick 1 feat as you level up. No 3rd level feat, but you got some at 2nd level, some at 4th level. So I enjoy that. I like being able to, again, customize your character, and when you level up, it's nice to have, like, you know, hey, that feeling of growth. Hey, I'm more powerful because I am adventuring and growing. What I also like too is, as far as helping the new player out, because there are so many feats to choose from, I'm sure some of these feats are similar to, you know, a veteran player of Pathfinder. They can look at some of this and go, oh, I know what that is, I'm taking it, just make sure I understand how it works in 2nd edition. But if you're a new player, which is where I'm coming from and my party to Pathfinder, there's a lot. There's still an overwhelming amount of feats and things to look at. So what's kind of cool is they have on some of these pages like a sample. Here's a sample alchemist, call him the bomber, and here's some things to choose. And I think that's kind of neat because, again, because there's so much, you don't know what necessarily works or how it works. So here's some here's some sample choices for you. Sample formula book. I'll get into this sample spell book in a second. So here's a barbarian. But same thing, you know, there's things that you get as you level up, and then you get choices. But again, here's some barbarian feats, a list. It's huge. Where do I go from that? So here you go. Here's a couple samples. You can maybe make an animal rager or make a fury. So that's kind of cool, just a sample ideas. Let's pop down to the wizard. Now, when it comes to spells and spell casting, let me find the old wizard. Monk, types of monks you might want. Ranger. Again, a huge section on the classes. They've really got some detail on these guys and gals. All right, here we go. Wizard. I usually make a spellcaster first when I get a new game, because to me spellcasters tend to be the more complicated characters, because you got to track spells. And some games you have lots of spells, some games you have a few. I've played a few game systems lately where I appreciated where all the wizard spells or cleric spells, they fit on one page. So there's like maybe 15 or 20 spells. And then it's not so overwhelming. Well, you get to Pathfinder, and I'll just show you fast. Wow, I mean, spells is a huge part of the game. Just showing you page-wise, this is a lot of spells. The spells section itself is a good portion of the book. And if you go here just to the spell lists, arcane, you know, it's got by like type there, arcane, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And for some people, that's very overwhelming. What do I pick? Where do I start? So what I thought was kind of cool was, you know, it's very, just read, and it tells you how to play and lay out your character. But what was cool is, in addition to, say, a sample wizard, how you develop it with your feats as you go up, it also has a sample spell book. So you get a lot more spells than what is shown here in the sample spell book for building your first wizard, magic caster type character. But again, for someone who's brand new to, say, fantasy role-playing, Pathfinder, whatever the case may be, a new player can look at this and go, okay, well, let me start with these, and then I can look and find some additional things that sound interesting to fill out my beginning spells. I think that's great. I really appreciate that, because now we can look at it and have a conjurer, or someone might say, well, here's how I might build an illusionist. And I think those are the only two samples they had there. But again, it gives you some ideas. I like it. Then they have a nice section on your animal companions and familiars. Aw, bats. But again, that's the first part of the book, is your ancestries and classes. So they did not, I don't think that they skimped on that part at all. I'm very happy that's a huge part of the book. That means you can really, as you get more familiar with the game, you're going to really start to be able to customize your character, and that's fantastic. Then you got archetypes. Archetypes, this is something that I've heard, well, read on some forums, not forums, but like YouTube comment. I watch a lot of YouTube. But on YouTube comments, some folks were unhappy with the idea of archetypes, because that's a way of kind of dealing away with multi-classing. Now again, having never played Pathfinder First Edition, I can't speak to how multi-classing works there. But having not played Second Edition yet, or made someone with archetypes, my understanding of archetypes is this is how you multi-class. So essentially it's almost like spending your feats. So instead of taking a character feat for your fighter, you might come over here and archetype out and take feats from, you know, other classes. And so it gives you like some of the abilities of another class. You don't actually ever have to be a fighter / alchemist. You're a fighter who has some alchemical knowledge. I think that's fine, because that's generally, I think, what a lot of people are looking for, is they want just a few items. Like with, I'll say D&D for the 5th edition, I know some folks that will take a warlock, but they'll multi-class out with like 1 or 2 levels of fighter so that they can wear plate armor and whatever, and then augment their fighter ability. Or they'll be like, you know, primarily focusing on fighter, but yet still have a few levels from warlock because they like some of the special warlock weapon or different things. So this allows you to take some of those abilities without necessarily being a fighter / alchemist. On the flip side, if you did like being a fighter slash alchemist, you might have to come up with your own house rules for that, because from my understanding, which is limited, multi-classing is not done that way. Multi-classing is done through archetype. So if you're a fighter, but you want some stuff from another class, you come and get it from this archetype section. But there's your archetypes. So again, huge section starting out on the ancestries and classes. So that to me is great. That's where the focus of a good player book should be. But this is more than just a player book. I'll show you here. It's got some additional things. But now you got a section on your skills. It didn't seem like there are as many skills as I've seen before. I think a lot of your skills are also augmented and offset by your feats that you take. So kind of a flip there. I know some people would rather have more skills, less feats, but yeah, you know. This one, it seems like you got a lot of feats, because that's how you customize your character, and then everybody has a similar set of skills that they pull from. So feats are really for customizing. Skills are kind of the core that everybody has. And then, of course, after skills, you really start getting into feats. Again, skill section's pretty big. Okay, skill section's not as big, but here's the feats. That's what I'm talking about. Feats. So many feats. And that's just starting out. They've already said, you know, like, again, if you've played first edition, I mean, I've gone in the store, I've seen, like, what, they got, like, 2 player books. There's, like, the core, then, like, player handbook this, advanced player book this. So they have lots. So this is just a portion of probably what's coming our way. But, again, lots of stuff to do to customize out your character. You know, the only downside to this, and what I've seen in other games I've played, is that you have so many choices, and yet people will clutch onto like 1 or 2 or 3, like a very small handful of feats and abilities, and they say, this is what you need to make the perfect min-max paladin. You know, take this and this. And then it's like, what do you do with all this other stuff? They've gone through the trouble of creating all of these feats and things, but people tend to gravitate towards just a few that they're comfortable with. But I think that's one reason why I like, if I go back to classes, I think it's kind of cool because, again, if you're not sure or you want to try something different, I thought it was neat that each class had like a sample build that you could go, like, here's a sample Fade Touched with some ideas on some feats and whatnot. Here's a sample Demon Blood. Okay, here's what you need to make a Demon Blood, and then, you know, kind of maybe how you could build that out a little bit. So, yes, again, lots of options. And I think that's maybe probably the really big strong suit of Pathfinder, is the way you can customize your character. Anyway, then you get into equipment. Fairly good equipment section. Lots of explanations on things, but a lot of stuff that you know, common that you'll see. But it's a fairly good equipment section here. Let's see. I like the art of weapons and explanations, but you've got, let's see, shields, armor. So a fairly good sized equipment section. Again, just kind of, you know, page count wise, not too shabby. But then, yeah, here's the next one, right? Spells is huge. But again, it's kind of that two-way street for some people. You might have thousands. I don't know how many spells are in here. I didn't count them out. But let's say there's 500 spells. I'm just making up a number. Great, you've got 500 spells. That's awesome. That means you're going to have something. You can always find something that is interesting to you. But at the same time, a lot of people I know, they gravitate towards just a handful of spells. It might be, you know, magic missile, sleep, hold person, charm, maybe an alarm, prestidigitation, something, right? There's just a handful of spells that people pick, and so I'm afraid people aren't always branching out to things, you know, acid arrow, fireball, stinking cloud. I don't even know if they have stinking cloud. Let's see. Oh, there's prestidigitation, saw that one. Remove fear, repulsion, remake. Here we go, S's. Stinking cloud, right there. So yes, if you like to have a lot of choices, bam, right out the gate, there's a lot. Yeah, it was kind of funny because I showed my wife, because she usually plays spellcasters, And we've played a few games where spells are very simply laid out. You know, they're like a one-sentence description. Easy. So I showed my wife, I said, yeah, look how many spells they have. And she goes, oh, cool. And they're like, you know, short descriptions. I go, well, no, that's just the list. And she goes, oh. Then they have the big description. Yeah, some are pretty wordy. I'll show you that she's making a spell book for another game. I might show that one day. But this would be right up her alley, though. It's taking all these books and then handwriting them into her custom spell books. Lots here. Anyway, again, spells, take that as you may. If you're the person who likes a lot of spells, then this is for you. If you're the type of person that doesn't like a lot of spells, give it a chance. Again, you might fall back to just a handful that you like to use, but you have choices. This is a section my wife saw, and she thought this was actually kind of cool. She goes, so what is this? Age of Lost Omens. This is a section that talks about the world. Now, they have like a whole separate book, I think either coming out, that talks about the world. This just gives you some nice fluff. So if you want to kind of create some of your own adventures within the world here, religion is something there. That's nice. Oh, there you go. Past that section and then boom, right into playing the game. Now this is all your combat checks, you know, the action system, which I thought was cool. I don't know how I feel yet, I haven't played it, but the concept is kind of cool, where you're allowed 3 actions in a turn, some things that you do, and you have a list of standard actions. You know, this might be 2 actions, this might be 3 actions, and so your feats, spells, and a lot of that stuff will have a little code that says how many of your 3 actions does it take to do that. So you could make 3 attacks, you could make, or usually cast like 1 spell. But anyway, the how to do all of that, I just saw hit point. Yeah, here's your action key icon, here's your actions, movement type. So what I thought was kind of cool, in all fairness here, I'm just flipping through there, is how to play is actually a small portion. Like the mechanics of playing the game is actually a small portion of this book. And I'm going to tell you, that's actually really cool. That means after you create your character, you really don't have a whole lot to worry about to jump in and start playing. You know, just like if you're starting out, just come and read, how do I make a basic attack? How do I move? And you're good to go. This will cover some additional stuff. Here's the actions. So like if you crawl, you know, it'll tell you how many segments of movement or whatever it takes of your actions to crawl. Drop prone is 1, escape is 1. Release looks like it's triggered. Ready takes 2 of your actions. So you got this little icon that tells you how many actions it takes. So if it's just this 1, but if you have a little sub arrow on it, so like 1 arrow, 1 action. 1 arrow with a sub arrow, that's 2 arrows, that's 2 actions. And I think that hollow arrow meant it was like a reaction. There was a key, and I passed up the key. So of course, I don't remember off the top of my head. There it is. Oh, it's a free action. Reaction has a circular arrow thing. And then if you've got 3 arrows, it's 3 action activity. Anyway, a very simple system. Probably will be something to get used to. I've never played that way with 3 actions before, but you know, I'm kind of interested in how that goes. Anyway, it's got everything that you would expect for combat rules. But like I said, that's actually a very small portion of the book. So once you get your character created, then you can hop right into playing. So that's great. Then there's a game mastering section. I would expect a separate Game Master book to come out at some point. If there isn't already, by the time you watch this, who knows, if you watch this a year or 2 from now, they probably have everything you need. But this does get you kind of going on what it means to be a dungeon master, how to do certain activities that people will call to do. There's rolling initiative. Gotta have initiative. Their difficulty classes. Yeah, that's always a challenge. This was interesting watching some playthroughs. I think what's interesting to see is as the characters level up, how everything kind of scales with them. Because I've watched some folks play like some higher level Pathfinder 2nd edition for, you know, demo purposes and whatnot. And sometimes it's like, do you hit armor class 30? Like, are you serious? So numbers get big, but as your character grows and things scale with it, I think that's good. I've played some higher level games, quote unquote, from other game systems, and it doesn't feel like it scales very well. But looking here, just some of my initial impressions, I think as you level up, things like they've given a lot of thought to balancing the scale of creep. So that's cool. I'm happy with that. Anyway, rewards, experience, things like that. Treasure. Yeah, this is nice. This has a big section on treasure. Here's your environment, forest rules, mountains, swamps, hazards. Hazards can be traps. So it's got a nice little section on some traps and locks and things you might run into. So it's nice. I think, like I said, if you get another book, you might want to supplement this out if you're new to dungeon mastering even. You might want to go out and see if there's some books on how to create your own dungeons. And most people, you just make it up. But they actually make a lot of third-party products that help you randomly create dungeons and populate them or go on the internet. So this kind of gives you some starting ideas for things. But there's a lot of stuff out there that you can get to really help you flesh out if you're new to dungeon mastering. Then here's the crafting and treasure section. This actually had, for me, a surprising amount of magical items. Normally when I play games, I play very low magic, but seeing as how they've got so many items laid out really, really well with different types of armor, I think they got weapons in here, that I might start using more just because they've got a bunch to choose from. Why not? Then we get to the end. There's some crafting, which I've not seen a lot of games with really good crafting rules. So would be curious in this because sometimes you get characters that are like, yeah, I want to make my own armor. Well, okay. But I think this has got some rules to help you out with that. So again, lots of stuff on items, treasures, wands, weapons, magical weapons. Lots of good stuff here. So I think this one book is going to give you a really good starting point. The only thing you need are creatures. So I would say scour the internet. Like I said, Paizo has a free adventure and it's got the creature stats in there. And then eventually you want to get your bestiary so you can create your own adventures and have all the creatures statted out. So here you go, conditions. Lots of conditions. Flat-footed, fleeing, friendly, frightened, indifferent, immobilized, hostile, hidden, stunned, quickened, restrained, sick. I'm going to need a separate chart of these. That's a lot of conditions that can get stuck on a character. And then the character sheet. And a nice index. I'll tell you what, I appreciate a game that takes the time to put an index. And I'm sure over time people will come up with their own addendum indexes with more stuff, but that's pretty thorough index. Well, that's the book. We flipped through. I hope that gives you an idea of what's in here. I'm excited to dig in. And like I said, I've already made a couple sample characters, and character creation is actually pretty easy. I think what I'll do is maybe one day make how to make a character and just show you. Because even though there's a lot of information, like I said, for the character classes and ancestries, when you start out at first level, it's really not that bad because all you have to do is read and look at, your level 1 choices. So you don't have to do all of this at once. This is as your character grows over time. So even if you play a session where you level up once per gaming session, you're still going to have to play 9 sessions to look at your 9th level stuff. So starting out, making a first level character really isn't that bad. So we might do that with you. But anyway, overall, I would say that's what's in here. And I don't think, if you've wanted to give Pathfinder a try, I think now would be a good time to hop in. Conversely, I know some people like to play devil's advocate with me, which is cool because I like to do that myself. That doesn't stop you from playing first edition. And I'm sure at some point people will start putting first edition stuff on sale. Plus the benefit to getting first edition stuff is even though it is not 100% compatible with second edition in some ways, that still gives you a lot of ideas to bring to your second edition campaigns, adventures that you could convert. If you got to fight orcs in this cave here, well, you can fight orcs. Just use second edition orcs if you're using second edition rules. So don't not get first edition stuff. If you see something in first edition that catches your eye, maybe the pawns and stuff like that, grab them up while you can And you can easily use a lot of that stuff for ideas and fluff material in 2nd edition. But if you're just starting in 2nd edition and looking for kind of an all-in-one rule book, I don't think you can go wrong with this. This is a fantastic entry point into a brand new game system. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. I tend to ramble on after a while, but we'll leave it at that. But if you have played this yourself or you have some thoughts you want to share, go ahead and put it down in the comments. I'll go ahead and stop now because we've hit a pretty good lengthy, honestly, I probably could have done this in like 3 minutes. Character classes. So I apologize if this was rather lengthy, but there it is. Thanks a lot for tuning in though, but we'll talk to you later.